Good morning, everybody. First of all, I have to apologize. I don't speak German. Ik spreek kein Deutsch. Ik verstehe es ein wenig, aber ich spreche es nicht gut genug. So I have to do it in English. Secondly, I know I only may speak 45 minutes. For a mayor, that's nearly impossible, but I'm going to do my best. And third of all, my people at the administration have given me too many slides, so I try to get through it in a good way. So I have to speak about, and of course a mayor is always proud to speak about his city, Mechelen. But maybe first of all, I situate Mechelen. Mechelen is in the center of the universe, like every city is, if you make a map like that. But you see, we are really in the center of what we could call the Flemish Randstad or the Flemish Ruhr. It's an urban area of 3 million people. Antwerp, Brussels is part of it. Ghent, Leuven is the most populated area of Belgium and Flanders. And we are really, let's say, the grand marketplace of it. We are lying in the center. We are a very historical city. We were once the capital of the Low Countries, Belgium and the Netherlands, before Brussels became the capital. And you see, if you visit my city, a lot of monuments. That's the reality. But what happened? That was that in the 60s and 70s and 80s, the population changed very, very fast. Mechelen became very fast a multicultural city, like a lot of cities in Western Europe. It started with a Moroccan migration. In the 90s, the Balkan came, then Eastern Europe, then Africa, Asia. And today, 56% of the kids born in Mechelen have a foreign background. 20% of the inhabitants are Muslims. The biggest minority is Moroccan, then Assyrian, Christians out of Turkey, then Indian people of India, because we have a big telecommunication factory that attracts those people. Then Armenians, Afghans, and so on. More than 140 nationalities, 138 stands here on the slide. So it's a super diverse city. It happened very fast. And politics had no answer to what to do with it. In the beginning, they thought they go back, they come to work, they go back, but the families came, kids came, there was no policy, and the city fell really in decline. Middle class left the city, 1 out of 3 shops was empty, there was a lot of criminality, uncertainty, poverty, and this is 1999, this was Mechelen. It was seen as the worst city of Belgium at that time. It's in Dutch, but those articles say a lot. Half of the city doesn't dare to go out in the evening. There is no social life anymore. We may not deny the poverty. After insecurity follows dirt. The integration sector doesn't want to integrate. On every street corner you can buy drugs, and so on. That was the reputation. If you look to the criminality figures, we are the highest. If you asked if you are proud, we monitor a lot of things in Belgium with the 13 biggest cities. If you would ask the people, are you proud of your city? In 2000, people of Mechelen were the figure was the lowest. They were not proud, they were ashamed because they had such a bad reputation. In 1 year, you know, city 90,000 inhabitants, in 1 year time, 1,500 cars were broken in, to give you one example. So it was massive. In 1 month, 60 elderly women at street were attacked. And so it was a city in despair, really. The consumer magazine Test & Koop, the biggest one, said it's the dirtiest city of Belgium. So it was a city, extreme right, was the biggest party. Vlaams Belang, which is a right side of your Alternative voor Deutschland even. So they had at that time 30% of the votes. And at that time, I was a young guy, and together with the team, we said we have to try to find an alternative, and we proposed ourselves, and we didn't expect it, but it became mayor with my team, and we had to take care of it and try to change it. And a lot of people say you cannot. It's difficult. That's the biggest problem. Even today in European and Belgium and German politics, it's always about how can you organize living together in an ordinary way. But this is 20 years later, only 20 years, 2 decades. Same articles, Wall Street Journal writes about a city of 100,000 people. We win prizes on every kind. We are the most child-friendly city. we are very good at climate changes. We have the second most interesting shopping center. Financial Times says Mechelen is the city of the future, and so on and so on and so on. So completely change over. So from zero to hero. My marketing lesson is finished. Good morning, everybody. This is what really happened. So it's a completely makeover. And of course the question is, how is it possible? And to give you a few figures, these are the figures, official figures. You see that's crime. Theft out of houses, minus 68%. Theft out of cars, minus 89%. Car theft, minus 88%. So these are impressive figures. It creates another city. Give you another thing. It was a month ago. It's the financial newspaper that ranked the 300 communities of Flanders. Who is the most social economic, the strongest one? And the number one city is Mechelen, before Antwerp. So if you, this is the employers organization that says this: if Flanders is the locomotive of the Belgian economy, then Mechelen is a turbochanger on that locomotive. So we are becoming a very strong city. A last figure, it's if you look to the shops, in every city it's a fight to keep your shopping center, because that's the heart of your, let's say, economic life and also cultural and social life. Every city is losing shops. We are the only one, together a little bit with Leuven, that is gaining shops. So we are growing. So those are important figures. And maybe a few other ones is child poverty. We had the second highest child poverty figures of Belgium in 2000, today the second lowest. So it's a real in-depth change of the city on, let's say, all aspects of life. Consumer magazine Testaankoop in 2018, the cleanest city, the dirtiest in 2000, 2018, the cleanest one. So, and what's very important also, trust in local government is the highest of all cities of Flanders, and which is even more important, trust in the other one with another background is also one of the three highest of Belgium. Only in 2 university cities it's higher. So the people trust each other again. There is again, and feel better, are you proud of being a citizen? Today, very, very high in Mechelen. If the mayor may speak in Germany for such an exquisite company, and there's a photo of it, of course people are proud of their city. So how did we do it? For me, it was also a question, because in 2016 we came on the international stage. And why was it? It had to do with the ISIS. At that time, a lot of youngsters, also in Germany, went to join ISIS, to fight with that extremist organization, with that totalitarian organization. And in Belgium, we had the highest number, 200 out of Brussels, 25 kilometers south of Mechelen, 100 out of Antwerp, 25 kilometers north of Mechelen. Out of Vilvoorde, a very small town, 30,000 inhabitants, 27, only 10 kilometers from Mechelen. And out of Mechelen, nobody. And everybody wondered, how is that possible? What have you done? And of course, we didn't make a policy with the idea within 15 years there will be something like ISIS and we have to protect them. We also for ourselves had to think, what had we done? How was it possible? What were the success factors for it? And at that time, the international press came to Mechelen. We became world mayor. It's a prize for the city, not for the mayor. I even came on Chinese television with it. I had to, on Japanese television, I had to explain what's the difference between a Muslim and a Christian, because out of their perspective, it's all the same. It are monotheists. So I had to, it's a big discussion in Europe between Muslims and not Muslims. And yeah, but why? It's the same. So it was a crazy interview, in fact. But also that site, ZDF and so on, the Le Monde, everybody was interested because everybody's looking for something positive. How do you can manage it, and how can you do it? So we also had to think a little bit, what have we done? How did we do it differently? And I think you can reduce it, and of course it's always, reduction is always not the complete picture. I think there are 4 really key elements. And the first, it's the rule of law. If you live in a city and you don't feel safe, your house is vandalized or your car is vandalized, Your kid is confronted with gangs on the street. There are drug dealers around the corner. There is no respect in the public domain. People feel abandoned. And they will be angry on two groups in society. First of all, they will be angry on the politicians at City Hall. They are not doing their job. And they will look for an alternative. And you open the door for populism. They will look for an alternative of people who say, we will solve it in our way. And the second thing is, people will ask, why is our city in decline? Because migration is often seen as decline, as loss. And they will say, of course, it's not me. I'm not responsible. It's the other one. And the other one, who is it? The migrant. And so you create a climate of confrontation. So if you want to do something, you have to create a city where the rule of law is respected, where you really have an impact on it, where you can secure people in their basic needs. And for me, it's a social policy. Because my kids are grown up in a middle-class neighborhood. There are no drug dealers around the corner. There is no graffiti there. There are no gangs. But if you live in a vulnerable neighborhood, with a lot of people together, there you need that rule of law. As a parent also, to protect your kid, to protect yourself. So we said we have to do that. We have to regain trust in that matter. We have to disconnect the fact that we become a multicultural city from the fact that this is a city full of criminality. We have to disconnect it. And so we have to do it out of the box, and we have to do it in every way possible. And we invested a lot in police. We did it. We invested a lot one basic element of our policy is creativity all the time. So we invested in police, but we also thought, how can we find an answer? And one of the things, and you know, I'm a liberal. For me, it's a big issue. But we said, no, we need cameras. And a lot of people say, privacy. But then I tell to people, we have 70,000 cameras in the city. And those cameras are your iPhones, who are making pictures all the time. And they are very dangerous for my privacy, because when I have a drink with another woman than my wife on a terrace, they make a picture of it and they can publish it on social media. And I have a big problem at home. The police camera will not do that. It's protected by law. You may not use it for everything. The justice system controls those 300 police cameras, but they helped us to fight crime. But we did more than that. We also, sometimes we used zero tolerance. And if I speak about Mechelen, with, for example, Bild-Zeitung, they only remember zero tolerance, but we did it. At a certain moment, you needed it. It was a neighborhood where youngsters were really harassing the neighborhood. What did we do? We said to them, okay, everything you do, every mistake now, we will fine you for everything, even crossing the street diagonally, you may not do that by law. Nobody gets a fine for it, but we did it there for 3 days. And after 3 days, they came to the police headquarters and said, can we restart, please? I said, okay, we restart. You behave correctly, we will behave correctly. It had an impact. And we tried to be, for example, one of the things we recently did was, you have those guys who drive with a car very fast through streets where people live all the time, misbehave themselves with cars all the time. People are angry about it. And the police, what can you do with the police? And sometimes there's a fine, but they don't care, they pay the fine, and so on. And I tried to be creative. And I said, as a mayor in Belgium, I'm head of the administrative police. I can say, if you have a weapon, a revolver, a knife, I can, let's say, confiscate it for 3 to 6 months. There has to be a reason. You can go to court to fight against that confiscation, of course. But I said, I may confiscate a weapon, but if you drive with a car like that, it's a weapon. So I confiscate it. And the justice system said, maybe he's right. Already confiscated 24 cars for 3 to 6 months. It's a problem for them. Because they hire those beautiful cars. They hire them. They have to pay 3 to 6 months. They have to pay it. And now it's a system that is used also in other cities, and it's accepted now by. Of course, you cannot do it for once. You have to make a file, but that's the way to try to be creative. But very important for me is those who think that with police and a kind of repression you create a safe city, you are wrong. If you only do that, you will not have a safer city. If you use police against explicitly or implicitly towards certain groups in town, you create the opposite. You create a broken city. People will pull back in their own community. Police will not be able to have a side in those closed communities. You have to do it another way. You have to be, at the same time, as hard against racism and discrimination. And secondly, you have to invest in prevention also. This is a beautiful program. We do it already 24 years. This is the Big Brother and Big Sister program. Kids of our town can work for 1 month during holidays for the city. They work on the playgrounds of town, and they are a little bit in charge of social control. They say to the younger kids of their neighborhoods, at 10 o'clock, let's be calm, people have to sleep, don't break it down, it's your playground, play, don't fight, respect other people. That's their role. And a lot of them are already now parents themselves, because if you are a mayor of during 24 years, you see a lot of people growing up. And they say the first time we really thought about why are those rules necessary was the moment we were responsible for it. We got a responsibility. And at the same time, the kids who play there, they don't see a white policeman bullying them and say, be quiet. But it's their nephew, it's the neighbor himself who represents the town and who is in control of, let's say, a good atmosphere at the playground. And every year, 30, 40 kids do it. During 24 years, it's 1,000 people who have done it. So it has an impact on a city of 90,000. That's I think, a first very important thing. And if you don't do that, you can forget all the rest. I'm convinced of that. If you don't create a city where security is, let's say, taken care of, and often it's, for example, at a certain moment there were youngsters who were in criminality, who were punished by the youth judge, but there was no place to put them in. They had done an armed robbery, for example, and they were put back on the streets. And the Minister of Justice, Jo van Deurzen, at the time, I speak about 10, 15 years ago, he said, yeah, I don't have place. Sorry, I don't have place, I don't have enough capacity. And I said as a mayor, I will build you one. I will build you an institute, a closed one. You get it from me for free. But I cannot accept that young people who do an armed robbery, even if they are 16, 17 years old, that they just can go out, because that's a bad example for everybody, for the city as a whole, for other kids, and for himself. He has no future anymore. He will end in prison when he is an adult. So do something about it, and I will pay it. We're the first and the only one. It was on television in a debate, and he said, yeah, are you going to do it? I said, I do it, because it's important. So I always try to find solutions. Another thing was that if you do something small, because I'm a little bit a believer in broken window theory. I believe in that. If you allow small things, it will grow. So if you do some smaller mistakes, we made a system that we take the kid, the youngster, we bring him to the police office, and we tax the trip, 150 euros. We call the parents, and we say you don't have to pay on one condition. We make a contract. You as a parent, you take up your responsibility. For 6 months we follow it. You give him a sport club to have something else. You bring him to school, whatever. Sometimes you get help to restore the relation between kid and also the kid signs it. And if nothing happens anymore, you don't have to pay. And that's a system that works. It's that kind of, let's say, creative approaches. Another thing is we made a top 10 of the, we call it turning door criminals, who always do the same things again. And we made a top 10, and we gave him an uncle policeman, one. And he had to come there every 14 days to explain what he has done. And all the police corps know those 10. And every time they saw them, they said, we are watching you. So a big social control. And we made an agreement with the Justice Office that every time they did something wrong, because it was enough, they would be brought before court for everything. But at the same time, that's the carrot. We looked for a new school for them. We looked for a job for them. We helped them if they had psychological problems. If they were addicted, we helped them. So we tried to create a kind of new policy out of the box to help people back on track. And what we also did is we tried to mobilize the parents. At a certain moment, I came in a neighborhood where a lot of youngsters were hanging around in a negative way. And they said to me, it was a meeting with as many people as here, the kids and the parents, they said, yeah, entertain us. In fact, they said, we are bored, there's nothing to do here. At 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the evening, we cannot do anything. So entertain us, Mayor. Do organize something. I said, I'm not your entertainer. I'm not your father or your mother. If you're at 10 o'clock, maybe you can read a book, maybe study a little bit for school, maybe go to bed on a decent way. And at the same time, we spoke to the parents. We said, your kids are hanging out the street doing the wrong thing. It's your task as a parent to be there. So we organized it. We saw that in Amsterdam. They did it in Amsterdam already. And it were fathers and mothers sometimes, but mostly fathers, who during the evenings walked around in their neighborhood, looking at their kids. We made a little place where they could have some tea and some coffee, and they did it for 4 or 5 months. And then they stopped. We cannot ask it for longer. But it changed the mentality of the neighborhood. There was again social control from a parent to his kid. What's normal? So those things we try to do. Secondly, second pillar, safety, clean city. That's a form of respect. For me, the public domain is the big equalizer of a city. It's from everybody. Everybody comes there. So we invested a lot in it. We mobilized the city. This was thousands of people had put that poster before their city to kiss, it wants to say. It was a kind of mobilization action of let's go on. Everybody is responsible to keep our city clean. I did one big mistake in summertime. I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a big shock. I built a glass container on the marketplace of the city, the big marketplace, and we put all the dust, all the dirt our city people who work find, and we put it in it. It was a brilliant idea as a confrontation, but it was too warm. And it started to smell, and all the terraces, I had a big problem with all the pubs and restaurants there. But it was a very, very strong image, and everybody understood. We throw a little bit more in it to give a big effect. Don't say it in Belgium, but okay. We mobilize people. We have good examples. We call it our heroes, the people. Uncles and aunts who say, okay, I'm in charge for this part of the city. I will clean this street every week. And we bring them together every year. We give them a big dinner and we thank them. It's a good example, and we post them also on the streets. We organize a lot of those things, pluggings and so on, to mobilize the city, because you can speak. We say words are attract the attention. Woorden wekken, voorbeelden strekken. But examples will really motivate people. And we invested ourselves a lot in cleaning our cities. Some streets we clean 3 times a day. We really do it on a very, let's say, intense way. And it makes us the cleanest city today in Flanders. Third pillar is public space, quality of life. We want to get middle class back. It's not an easy. Often politicians have to say we look to the people who are socially vulnerable. Of course we have to do that. We want to be an inclusive city, but a city needs middle class, and we need them in every neighborhood, because we want to have mixed neighborhoods. Because I know if middle class comes back in a poor neighborhood, they are unpaid social workers. What do? They come to complain at City Hall within a week. The lighting is not good, streets are bad, because they are, let's say, outspoken more. They know they can organize that they have the social capital to organize a neighborhood. They organize parties. I saw it in my own family when my father and mother were in education. They were teachers, and the house next to us, there was a poor family with 7 kids. a Flemish family, but real marginalized a little bit. And at home we had a library of books. They had no books. We had to make our homework first and then play. And we get, when we came home, we get a little bit of chocolate and, you know, and something to drink, and we made homework, and my parents helped me. And the neighbors, they came also. They invited the neighbor kids also. And my parents helped them to make homework. They gave them books to read. That's the start of upward social mobility. And we see that in those neighborhoods where middle class is coming back, you see the change of that neighborhood. You see more social cohesion. You see more perspective again. That's what we want. And sometimes they say, yeah, but you push the others out. That's Anglo-Saxon approach, because in Belgium, 70% of the people own their own houses. And certainly migrant families who are discriminated on the renting market, they buy in poor neighborhoods old houses. And what do? We renew the public area in those neighborhoods with the same quality of materials as in the inner city. We create parks. We did it, and what happens, their house is much more, they can get much more money for their house. They stay there, they see a nicer environment. And next door, a young middle-class family comes to live there and starts to organize the neighborhood and does exactly the same what my parents did with the family that was living near my house. So, and you see a complete change of atmosphere in those neighborhoods. And we invested a lot in that. That was how it was before, that's how it is now. To give you an example, that was a brewery in the center of the city. Now it's a congress hall, in a beautiful congress, in the center of the city. And the brewery was empty for 20 years. Street, this was an old building, a shopping building, completely abandoned. We built this in the center of town. This is a social neighborhood. It was the same. It was built as much as possible, so many social houses as possible, cheap, bad material, bad quality, ghetto feeling. This was how it was. This is how it is now. Social houses. Nobody sees this as a social housing project. You know, in Belgium, 10% of the houses are social houses, we call it, is from the government. Only people with a low income can live there. And they were often seen as ghettos, as places where everybody was dumped. This is how we rebuilt it. So it's not only for middle class, also for poorer people. Our streets are now, this was an abandoned cloister. It was empty for 30 years. Now it's the most beautiful library of Belgium. So we invested a lot in that quality. We have a lot of canals. They were all gone, a little bit like Bruges or a Dutch city. They were all disappeared. We bring them back in the inner city. So it becomes a very attractive city. It's also a very touristic city. We built it, you have a railway above your river. We built it a walking bridge on our river to give it more quality. And of course, we try to organize big events. We have a moon rock. It reflects to our nickname. We are the moon extinguishers of Belgium. It's history, but I'm not going to tell this. But it's a free concert. It's the biggest free concert in Belgium. It's on the Grand Marketplace for 3 days. So we create positivity atmosphere. We create a holiday feeling in the city that's in the inner town. And that's the Grand Marketplace, 3 weeks long. It's a beach, so Mechelen is holiday. And for marketeers, very interesting. We were always speaking about security. We publish every 3 months our statistics. We discussed about it in 2001 in City Hall with all parties, also the extreme right. How do we register it? How do we communicate about, let it be objective. So there's no discussion about the figures anymore. You have in Germany, I think, now a big discussion about figures and so on. And yesterday there was a policeman out of Hamburg saying, yeah, you can interpret figures in different ways. We said, let's be clear about how to interpret. Let's be very, very open. We all speak the same language. And then we can discuss about the figures. Otherwise, you discuss about how the figures are made. So we did that. But by discussing all the time about security, there was a problem. Mechelen had a bad reputation about security in the past, and every time we emphasize, even if the figures were better, that there was security issues. And then we said, how can we solve that? We will be the child-friendliest city of Flanders. We start speaking about child-friendliness. And we organize a lot of child-friendly things. And if you see a picture like this cannot be a city with a criminality problem. This is a city with happiness. So child-friendliness we used to change the narrative. And so we do a lot about that. We created parks, as an example. So that was that. And then I still have some time? Yeah. Quarter? 5 minutes. Oh. Okay, then I have to walk very fast. So, what? 12, okay. So, the most difficult one is segregation. Fighting it, create one. A city, for me, it's not a city of communities, it's a city of citizens. I'll give you one example. I made a mistake myself in the beginning. Youngsters hanging around, creating problems. Muslim background, I said I have to speak with the imam. I spoke with the imam. He came to my office. He was a very polite guy, very nice guy. He said, I'm going to help you. He went to the mosque on Friday. He had speech, very strong speech. A good Muslim doesn't behave like that. He has to be honest. He has to be respectful. He has to, as a parent, you have to control your kids. We cannot accept that. Surah so much and so much. Unacceptable for a Muslim to act like that. And that had a certain impact. I was happy. I said, good thing. I have a best new friend, BFF. Imam. And 1 month later, I said, I have another problem. Young girls are not allowed to study at university. And I asked him again. I said, Imam, you have to help me because in Muslim families, young girls have not the same opportunities. You have to help me. We live in Mechelen, in Flanders, in Belgium, in Europe. Let's try to do something about it. I said, I will think about it. He hasn't done anything. And then I said, I made 2 mistakes. First of all, I may not instrumentalize an imam or a priest or whatever for my policy. He has his role to play, I have my role to play. He has another, let's say, another context. But secondly, and that's the biggest mistake, I looked at those kids as Muslims. As a mayor, I may not look at them as a Muslim. I have to look at them as a citizen. And they don't have to behave because the Islam says so. They have to behave because the law says so. So I stopped with that, and I stopped completely with that. And for me, a city is not a city of communities, it's a city of citizens. And once we start thinking directly or indirectly about a city of communities, you put people in a box, you create a caricature. And the biggest danger of a city are ghettos, mental and or physical ghettos, where people live apart from each other, because then the caricature starts. Then the jealousy starts. Why do they get a park and we don't get a park? Why is police always controlling us and not them? So we stepped away completely from that communitarian thinking. We don't believe in it. It doesn't help us a bit. Those leaders of communities, who has elected them? Their agenda, who has made their agenda? Why? So if you speak, some leader we had a youth club, American youth club, and the Assyrians said, it existed since the 70s, Moroccan youth club. The Assyrians asked also a youth club. And I said, what do we have to do? Create 140 youth clubs, where they all can be themselves. Or do you have to create one big youth club, or 2 or 3 big, where they live together, where they respect diversity, where they learn to live together as one community? So we did it. And I don't believe in assimilation. I'm not an assimilation guy. I believe you are lasagna. That's who you are. You have many identities. I'm a citizen of Mechelen. I'm Flemish. I'm Belgian. I'm European. I like to read books. I don't like to go to soccer. And all those identities make a link, bridge me with other people, and sometimes close me from other people. So if we look to each other like that, there is one layer in that lasagna that we all have in common. That's being citizen of Mechelen. So let's invest in that. And so we allow, of course, organizations to be Moroccan or Turkish or whatever, but we put our money and all our efforts and all our energy in those things where people with different backgrounds come together and live together as one. We use our history for it. That's a Holocaust museum. Jews in Belgium were brought in Mechelen. We use it to say, remember what can happen. We had a high court in the medieval times. We were the city of justice. We were seen as a city of justice, so let's use that. We are proud. We stopped saying migration is a problem. We are proud of our citizens. We don't speak about migration, we speak about our citizens. That's what we do. And we put that 1 year, it's a photo of every nationality, one person, to say that's who we are. We are a city, diverse but one. We organize programs, buddy project. Every newcomer in Mechelen gets a buddy. They spend 40 to 60 hours together, 1 or 2 hours a week, to practice the language, to speak with each other, to give them a network. The University of Leuven has examined that if you have one person out of your ethnic cultural background, your chances on the labor and housing market double. We started it with that. I have been minister for a few years. Now it's by law in Flanders. 10,000 volunteers do that with newcomers. To practice the language, learn how, because we always speak values, same values. But you only get the same values if you live together. We subsidize meetings in streets and so on to bring people together. We have a culture of progress. That's our library. We say, young people, poverty is not a fatalist thing. You can get higher up on the social ladder, so we invest in that. We respect our traditions. It's a Catholic, sorry for that, Catholic traditions. But we also organize an iftar on the Grand Market, because they are also citizens of Mechelen. Summer schools, 14 days during the summer, kids can, on a voluntary basis, go to school. And we do it not in the classroom, but in the football stadium, in the museum, in another exciting place. They can play a lot, but we learn them also language again, mathematics, and so on. And the schools say, ask those kids, it's on a voluntary basis. The teachers are doing it on a voluntary basis. And the effect is that in the beginning of the new year, in September, kids who have been not at school for 2 months, summer vacation is 2 months, and speak at home another language, they have lost it. And from this first day on, they are losing, and they are not motivated anymore, and they cannot answer when something is asked. After summer school, they are the best of the class, and they get motivated, and they keep on doing efforts. So we do it with hundreds. Today also Flemish policy. So we also introduced that Mechelen example now in Flanders. Social neighborhoods, that's our only ghetto we really have, because there you can only live if you have a small income. But what have we done? Also now Flemish policy, 3% of those houses we give to people who are middle class, earn too much to have a social house. They can rent it at the same low price, but in return they have to do voluntary work 10 hours a week in that social neighborhood. Learning people Dutch, helping kids with homework, organizing events, for example, what to do with garbage, things like that. And it works phenomenal. Young people, let's say a young teacher, has not enough money, he can hire a house. 3% of those people do it. We have a tradition of giants in Belgium, you know it. We introduced the new reality in our historical traditions. We have 2 new big giants, Noah and Amir, Black African and North African big giants. And again, of course, kids have spoken. Not only ethnic cultural diversity, also other kinds of diversity. Special Olympics, we organized it. It was a big success. That's our football stadium. That was the opening ceremony. It was the biggest Special Olympics event in Belgium ever. 15,000 people followed it. It's typical Mechelen approach. We want to do something for them. Same with cancer. We have a national organization fighting cancer, bicycling 1,000 kilometers in 4 days. It starts and it ends on the Grand Marketplace of Mechelen. It's typical for our city that we do it. We are creating a cancer center in the middle of town where people who have cancer can go for everything they have, and it's a photo exhibition that explains that we are there. So to end, very fast, the city we want to be. What kind of city? Marketing now. I hesitated for this, but I'm going to, not in a party political way. Sorry, not in a, because they are both, I respect them both very, very much. They are, for me, both iconical figures for Europe. But I was at a meeting of Paul Scheffer, and he told me something that's really, really to the point. Politics of the center, and from left to right, they make one big mistake. They stopped dreaming. They stopped saying what they want. They always use words like Mark Rutte, it's complex, it's difficult, saying I cannot change anything about it. And your Merkel has often said there is no alternative until there comes an alternative. So I think that may never be the approach of a politician. A politician has to dream, has to believe that he can make the world better, his city better. And what we say in Mechelen, maybe you know that comic, it's from Asterix, it's a Belgian-French thing. We are that city. All the world is struggling with diversity. We are the village of Asterix. We stop the Romans. We make a difference, and we try to make people proud of that. We communicate day after day about it for 24 years. We believe that, yes, we can. We believe in it. That if you can dream it, you can do it, but it asks a lot of work. And I will end with this one, and I think that's a very important, that's my experience of being 24 years mayor. People say, people make the city, but I really believe that a city narrative, the ambition of a city, the progress of a city, can also make better citizens. I thank you.